Thank you, Mary. Is Mary in here? Where's Mary?
I think they're in the meeting still.
They're still in the meeting? Okay.
The whole building's really nice. Really nice.
All right. Well, shout out to Mary. Shout out to everybody who helped make this happen. Maggie, thank you so much. Your team. Couldn't have done it without your team. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. It's all down there in that other room. All right, everybody, welcome back to America's Real Estate Show. We are so excited that you're with us today, and we are live from Houston, Texas. I'm Ashley Polito, your host. Yay! Big shout out to Houston. I'm Ashley Polito, your host, and we feature top producers from across the country on our show so that they can share all of their secrets to success. And today we have a powerhouse from Dallas, Texas. So if you would, please help me welcome to the show, Chad Smith. Hello, Chad.
Hey. All right. Thank you all. I appreciate that. Thank you, Ashley. Thank you, Mark, for helping, and everybody that put this together for America's Real Estate Show in Houston, Texas. I appreciate every one of you. Thank you.
Awesome. Okay, now, Chad, you know that I always love to get things started with a shout out party. So who would you like to say a big hello to before we officially get started?
Okay, well, I've got to start with my wife, Stephanie, and then Brianna, Kaylee, Ashlyn, and Dana, my daughters. Everyone on the Chad Smith team, everyone in the Real Solution, and then all my ROA family as well. And then I'll finally say everyone that watches from Faith Christian Center in Arlington, Texas.
Beautiful. Okay, well, I'm going to do a couple of shout outs. First, everybody who is watching on the live stream, thank you so much. We would love for you to flood our Instagram. So please post pictures of you watching today and tag at America's Real Estate Show. I would also love to give a huge shout out and thank you to Homes.com and Closed Title for making today. Okay, so Chad, we're going to get going. You know, my other thing that I love to start with is a highlight reel. So I'm just going to share just a few things because you've done so many in your career. I'm going to share a few things that you've done, and then we're going to get rolling into our conversation today. How's that sound?
Sounds good.
Okay, so at your previous brokerage, you were awarded Hardest Working Agent 3 years in a row. You won Individual Agent of the Year, Top Team of the Year 3 years in a row, and that was out of more than 600 agents. You've been recognized by Real Trends as one of the top 250 agents in the nation. You've closed more than $100 million in sales a year multiple times, and you have founded The Real Solution. Your community has closed more than $400 million in sales, and that was just last year. You created the Infinite Agent model, which we will dive into today. And you recently built a national training platform for your current brokerage, Realty of America. Congratulations on all of your success.
Thank you.
All right, so now we know every great story does not start with all of the highlight reel, right? So I want to start with something that's maybe just a little unconventional, and that is with your very first dream. Your first dream was not real estate. Your first dream was music. So I'd love for you to share with everybody what that journey, that season of your life was like.
Okay, so I was, I believe, 13 years old. And I was living with my dad in an apartment, and he had this CD of Stevie Ray Vaughan, and I heard the song Little Wing. And as far as I can tell, that was the first time in my life something happened where I heard that song and I went, I've got to do that. I'm going to do that right there. And it just started this pursuit. And I've been chasing that tone of Stevie Ray Vaughan ever since. And you know, that was really the passion that I had all through my teenage years. I played soccer too. I had a soccer scholarship, and I walked away from the soccer scholarship after my freshman year. because I had started a band. We had gotten signed to a local label. We had started to develop a following. And somebody thought they were going to get rich off of our band. And they flew my band and 40 of our fans to Hollywood. And we played in front of all the major record labels at a showcase at the Whiskey A Go-Go in Hollywood. And I was 20 years old. And it was pretty wild. It was an amazing journey. And however, I had no life skills whatsoever. And so over those corresponding months, we found out that we didn't get signed to a label, and I spiraled out of control. And so by the time I was 23, as high up as I had gone, I had crashed, and I actually couldn't even hold a job. Just had no vision for my life whatsoever, and hit rock bottom by the time I was 23.
Well, a perfect place to rebuild your life, right? Yeah. So you often call that period of your life the lie of fame. Mm-hmm. And I'd like for you to describe for everybody what you consider the lie of fame to be. And I'm also really curious to know if you feel that other people have experienced the lie of fame, but maybe in just a different way.
Yeah, I think that we all do, or a lot of us do for that matter. My description of the lie of fame is combined with the last song I wrote in my band was called The Dream of Me. And so having gone through all that, what I realized is that when we're growing up, when I grew up, it was TV and movies and sports. Nowadays, it's all those things plus social media. And we get this dream given to us, and it's like, oh, if I could just be a professional athlete, or if I could just be famous in some way, then I could kind of escape normal life, and I would hit this escape velocity, and I wouldn't have to live like everybody else. Mm-hmm. And it's really a lie, because as I got older, I realized that most of those stories that we latch onto as people are on their rise, quite often it ends in tragedy. And so as I grew in business, I realized that if a dream is just about yourself, and if it's attached to something that's what I call finite, like in business, it would be, if your goal is just to beat the other person that's ahead of you, or to make a certain amount of money, or to sell a certain number of homes, what happens when you achieve it? Mm-hmm. And so we experience these things, and then there's this hole inside of us. And so that's how I describe it. And as far as relating it to real estate, I was part of a brokerage that started off with 65 agents in one of the biggest brands in the nation. We went on this meteoric rise to number one. We were the number one most profitable office in the world 2 years in a row. And then I remember sitting at the national convention with that tight-knit group of people. It was so awesome. We're number one in the world, and we all kind of looked around at each other and we're like, what do we do now? And the truth is we never found another goal. And it just slowly kind of dissipated from there. Mm. And so when I look back on my life, that's what happened, is I had this dream, and it was my dream. And I didn't know how to achieve it. And then when it was gone, I didn't know what to do. So I cried out for help. I can remember, I mean, it's so sad to say, but I walked away from, like I left for lunch at a couple jobs and never came back. Or, I've never been good at just doing something without a purpose. Mm-hmm. So the dream was gone, and I couldn't just do something that didn't matter. And I remember going over to my mom's house and telling her, I think something's wrong. I think I need help. And she said, well, if you just had a job, then you could go to the doctor. And I shouted, I can't do it on my own. And that very next day, my uncle called me. And my uncle lives in Kentucky. He lives in Lexington, Kentucky. And he was 44 at the time, and he was retiring from passive income in real estate. He had a 3,000 acre farm with 75 miles of motorcycle trail. Mm. He was like, why don't you come live with me for a while? Okay. So I went and I moved out there. And over the course of a couple months, we would drive around town and we would listen to Rich Dad Poor Dad on audio. And then we would go eat at an Applebee's. And then we would get back in the car and he would go, guess what? I own that building. And then we would go to a car wash and we would leave and he'd go, guess what? I own that. And then we would go rent movies at Blockbuster. Some of y'all don't know what that is. And he would say, guess what? I own that. I own that too. And so I started to have a new dream. And I saw that he had won his time back. And he was spending it with his sons, and they were riding motorcycles. And he was a pilot. If he wanted to teach them about the U.S. government, he would fly them to Washington, D.C. If he wanted to teach them about the Grand Canyon, they would fly to the Grand Canyon. And this just appealed to me. So I moved back to Texas, and I knew nothing about business whatsoever, right? So I had never made more than $22,000 in a year. I had never had a money consciousness whatsoever. I just wanted to play guitar. And so I went and saved up money to get my real estate license so I could just start figuring out how it all worked.
Mm-hmm. And what would you say was one of the biggest lessons you learned when you were with your uncle?
I definitely think it was this whole idea of not just being an employee, of recurring revenue. He wasn't a real estate agent, but he had these other things that were working, whether he was awake or asleep. And so that's the biggest thing. He won time freedom. A lot of us, we can win money freedom, but he won time freedom. That really appealed to me. Yeah.
So you did move back to Dallas.
Yeah.
And then you got your real estate license, but your business didn't take off right away.
No.
You struggled for a while.
Yeah.
So I'd love for you to share with people what that season of your life was like.
Sure. So if there's anything that I can share today, I mean, we're going to get into the business and there's some really cool things there, but the most critical part of my life, I think, was that period of 2004 to 2008. So I get my real estate license and my goal was to be Rookie of the Year. Put it on my first goal sheet. My wife's parents called me Rookie of the Year for the first year of real estate. Well, I was nowhere remotely close to Rookie of the Year. I sold 6 homes my first full year. While simultaneously, at one point I drove a forklift, I coached soccer teams, I took a job at a flooring store so I'd have enough money to buy Christmas presents, just whatever. I put out We Buy Houses signs for investors all night long just to be able to pay the bills. However, what did happen to me is a couple weeks into my real estate license, this man, his name is Gary Mosley, he walks up to me in the cubicles of the office and he says, "Hey, look, man, I'm not trying to push anything on you, but I see you're reading all these books and I see that you're hungry, and here's this CD." And the CD was from a men's conference called Men of Destiny. And the title of this CD he gave me was called The Home Run Man, like baseball, first base, second base, third base, home plate. He said, if you don't like it, you don't even have to tell me. But this changed my life. That's what he told me. So I get this CD and I get in my car and I'm driving over to my girlfriend's apartment. And this is the first encounter of my life that I've heard anything like it. And what I describe it as, it's manhood with honor, biblical strength. I'm driving down the road and I hear this boldness that a real man lays down his life for God and then his wife, and he honors his wife all the way down to his thoughts and his actions. And then he trains up his children. And then he operates in excellence in the workplace so that he can be a blessing to everyone. I pulled over on the shoulder of the road and I bawled my eyes out. Because probably, I didn't think about this till this week, knowing that we were going to do this. is probably the only other time I could think of that's the same as like listening to Little Wing, where as an adult I went, I'm going to do that. So I drove over to my girlfriend's apartment. I put the CD in. And she's like, what is this? And I said, it's a preacher. She said, what denomination? I said, I have no idea. I don't know. So we started playing it, and she went over to her closet, and she was tidying up the closet. She went over to the bathroom, and she tidied up the bathroom. And she went over to the little Sony CD player, and I thought she was going to turn it off, and she turned the volume up. And so that day, 2004, so 21 years ago, I committed to her that day, this is what I'm going to become. And so I got saved in that church. We got baptized together in that church. We got married in that church. Our children have been born in that church, and they go to that same, our church's private school. And so like nothing happened in real estate until I got that right. So 2004 through 2008 was me figuring out how to live. I had to figure out how to live. I had to figure out how to stop doing certain things and replace those bad habits with good habits, healthy habits. And so I did whatever it took, and I was desperate to break through a ceiling of achievement. And around 2007, into 07, then going into 08, there was a leadership change at this office, and the guy that took it over was the number one agent in our board. He had sold 215 homes in a year. And I met him, and I went to this class, and the Great Recession was starting. And he said, look, I sold 215 homes last year, and if you do exactly what I teach, you cannot fail. And I was like, that sounds like church. That sounds like my church. And so my thinking then was, okay, he's valid, he's actually done it, and he's willing to show me exactly what to do. And I've spent the last 4 years copying a model. I can do this. And it all came together.
It all fell into place. Mm-hmm. So share with everybody, because he was your very first real estate mentor. Mm-hmm. So share with everyone, what were the main teachings that took you from struggling to becoming the number one agent? Because that's a big gap, and I want everybody to know that that happened just in 12 months. So you went from really struggling mm-hmm. to number one in 12 months. So he had to have taught you something pretty phenomenal.
Yeah, you had Brooke Summer on the show a couple weeks back, and the way I can relate it now is we have social media, and the algorithm is feeding you something. And the way I work to describe it to people now is that either you train the algorithm or the algorithm is going to train you. Well, it was the same thing. So 04 to 08 I learned how to reprogram my mind. And then whenever I met my mentor, I just got a hold of all these scripts and dialogues. And so I memorized and internalized the language of a millionaire real estate agent. So I would get there at about an hour and a half before they even unlocked the doors of the building. And there was a big section of the building that was vacant. And I would walk just in circles with my daily prayers and affirmations and scriptures. And then I would read like 45 minutes of expired and for sale by owner and listing and buyer presentation scripts. And then the next thing he taught me was lead generation. We're in a lead generation business. And lead generation can look like a lot of different things. But if you could boil down your entire career, it's 20 contacts. You could get that through 20 DMs on social media a day now, where you start having real estate conversations. You could do it through your sphere of influence. You could do it through marketing. You could do it through outbound prospecting. But I got really serious. I committed to doing that. And then the final thing is, when I met him, I walked up to him and I said, I don't know that I need to be here. So he took over this office. He was kind of re-interviewing everybody that was there. He said, I don't know. I told him, I don't know. He had a whole list of questions to ask me. He did not ask me one question. I walked in, I said, I don't know that I need to be here. My uncle retired from real estate, passive income. I know these investors, and they're making all this money, And I think I pointed at him. I said, do you or anybody that you know have a real estate license and you're generating passive income? And he got out this piece of paper and he drew a circle in the middle. He said, what I've found, and this is going to lead into everything we talk about. He said, what I found is that if you become the best agent in your market, then you control all the opportunity. So he said, if you have a dominant real estate business and you drive it through listings, then opportunity comes to you because you're the number one source of business for your title company, for your mortgage company, for your home inspector, all the other agents in the market. And so then he started drawing all the circles around his real estate business. He said, I own rental properties. I have a property management company. I own these offices. I still have money coming in from my team. He drew all those circles. And so when I saw that, again, I said, okay, I'll do that. And so it was me saying yes to becoming a top agent, knowing that someone was going to show me the way. And then the commitment to the daily activities that lead to success. Mm-hmm. And, that was when the market, that year when I became the top individual agent of the year, the dollar volume of my market dropped 40%. And I went up like 2.5 in 1 year. So 250% up while the market dropped 40%.
Well, and out of all the activities that you were doing, if you had to pick maybe just like the top two, what would you say were the top two things that helped you go from struggling to number one?
Well, so I didn't have a sphere of influence. So I didn't really know anybody that had the money to buy a house, that type of thing. And social media wasn't big yet. So from as far as I was concerned, I had one choice. And so it was expireds. And little side note, if you're on social media and the ad starts off with cold calling is dead or a sphere of influence is dead, understand that somebody's just selling you a product because all that stuff still works. Social works big time. But so like we got a young man in our group that he's like 21 years old and he called an $800,000 expired and it sold this year. So all that stuff still works. But that was my thing. I actually loved it. I still do. I love expireds because they have their hand raised. They need help. And I can analyze that thing and show them exactly what didn't happen, show them what needs to happen. And the more agents I compete against, the better. Mm-hmm. Like I don't care if there's 13 other agents. That's actually good news to me because I love going in and winning.
Oh yes,
that's my favorite.
I've actually watched you do this live with your in your coaching community, which that was a really fun experience, by the way. Okay, so let's talk about leadership for a minute. You shared with me off camera that after you hit number one in your office, you decided to study leadership nonstop.
Yeah.
So I'm so curious to know what was so important about studying leadership and what were the biggest lessons that you learned that ended up taking you to the next level during that journey?
Okay, so tying all this together, remember, right, the Men of Destiny CD, right, this vision for my life. I remember standing there in January of the year I won the Individual Agent of the Year, receiving that award, thinking, okay, I'm exhausted, and there's like, it's not big enough to accomplish any big goals. So, and I'd won hardest working. All the agents in the office had nominated me this a couple of years, and I thought, I've got to stop winning this award. Like, it's not my goal to win this award for the rest of my life. I've got to do it a different way. And so I fell in love with leadership. So I spent 5 years, and I would say that every single book that I read was leadership. Read every book. I volunteered in, one of the things John Maxwell says is that if you want to learn how to lead a volunteer group, mm-hmm. because you don't have a paycheck, you don't have a title, you don't have anything that you can lord over them. You have to get their buy-in. You have to create vision. You have to give them enough reason to come with you. It's just a great training ground. So I served on the leadership council at my office as a volunteer, unpaid, 8 years in a row. I chaired a growth committee for 8 years in a row. I've led men's discipleship groups at my church for 15 to 20 years now. And so I just started studying it. And so I shifted gears from I still learn from my leaders, my pastor, I'm still learning from my pastor, and my mentor, but I also went to school on them in a different way. So I'm learning, how do you speak the language of real estate? How do you become a great technician in real estate? But why do they lead a room the way that they lead? How do they have difficult conversations? How do they say what needs to be said in a way that everyone receives it? How do they cast a vision? How do they deal with problems? And I studied them like a hawk, man. I'm like watching everything they do. And if I could kind of boil down what I think leadership is, one, I think that you have to be able to, you have to have an infinite goal. It can't just be, hey, come to my team because we have low splits or we got lots of leads. Because if they join me for splits or leads, they'll leave me for splits or leads. Mm-hmm. Or even training, okay? Because then they get trained and then they're gone. So if it's something that you're passionate about and it's bigger than all of that, and they join for that reason, then you could do that together for decades, okay? Mm-hmm. That would be one thing. Another thing would be, I have to be so focused on growing that I'm looking for world-class people that would come towards me, and then I'm not afraid of them being great. And so then I have this conversation with every one of them, and I say, I'm committing to you. I'm not afraid of you becoming great, and I will never become a limiting factor to you. Mm-hmm. So then the next thing, and this took me a while, but it's defining what your core values are. And core values are not plaques you put on the wall. Core values are, who are you? And what is the standard on the way everyone is going to treat each other around this place? Because I will hire and I will fire based on these core values. This is the predetermined way that we show up here. And the only time I'm ever going to get intense with you is if you're violating the core value that you already agreed that you were going to operate under. And then finally, it's that what I also say constantly is, if at any point I as a leader am unwilling to say what needs to be said, that's the minute that the organization dies. That's leadership to me.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. So perfect segue into, I want to kind of jump to 2012, because I believe that's when you started actually building your team.
Yeah.
And it was just 8 years later that the Chad Smith team hit over 100 million in sales.
Yeah.
So I'm super curious, if you had to start all over again, what would be maybe the top 2 or 3 things that you would immediately do to rebuild your team so that you could hit that 100 million in sales again?
Well, I say all the time, like, if you went and dropped me in a city I don't know, I could do it. And so I'll answer a little bit differently, just in that I have people all the time come to me and they go, I want to build a team. And I always say the exact same thing every time. I say, okay, great. They say, what's my first step? I say, pay the price to become the #1 listing agent in your market. And they always look so disappointed. Like, no, I can't be it. Like, I wanted to go hire 4 buyer's agents and never show up again. And so very few people take me up on this. I feel like the skill you're looking to build is the ability to break through a personal ceiling of achievement. Because it all sounds good today, right? But there were I don't even know how many points where you can't figure out what the next step is. We're talking about thousands and thousands and thousands of mistakes, and a lot of people who came and went. And I'm grateful for every one of them and all the steps. But the game's not over until we win. Mm-hmm. And so it's this commitment to personal growth, and then your team cannot do what you can't do. And so I went head to head against every agent in my market, and I beat all of them on those listing appointments. And then I studied leadership as much as I learned being an agent. So that's what I would start with, is commit to being the agent that you would like to attract on your team. You don't attract what you want, you attract what you are.
Okay, so that's one. Give me one or two more.
It has to be based on a commitment that the organization is going to do the right thing because it's the right thing to do every single day you go to work. And you can go in and out of this, but a real business, you can't scale hero. You have to be willing to build systems and processes, and the contacts have to get made. Like we have young people on our team now, like we have active buyers from TikTok right now, right? Because they're doing that. But we also have people that are calling expired listings and cycling through. We have ISAs that cycle through all 55,000 old leads, and they're churning leads every single day. And there's AI follow-up and this and that. So you have to commit to that business D, the drive that builds out all the systems and processes.
Okay, perfect. So one of my most favorite things about your story is after all your success, instead of doing what I would say more, because you could have just done more of what you were already doing.
It's true.
But what is so fascinating is you actually went searching for something different. So my first question is, what made you question absolutely everything to have you go, you know what, I'm going to hit the pause button, I'm not going to do more, and I'm searching for something else?
Okay, so it's a couple things. One is, what's my commitment to my team? That I would never become a limiting factor to them. So I worked on the expansion model that I was taught in my previous brokerage. And it was linear. So we were in the southwest part of Dallas-Fort Worth, and then I opened up an expansion office an hour and 20 minutes on the northeast side of the Metroplex. And I realized really quickly, let's say I keep going, and then I go to Waco, Austin, San Antonio, Houston, and beyond. The only person who's going to truly benefit from that expansion is me. But I told these world-class team members that I would never become a limiting factor to them. So that was one. Two was I started to run into the limitations of the model that I had built in. And I'm super grateful for that time I had at that brokerage. I learned amazing things. But it was built on a business model that was popularized in the 1950s. The franchise model came out of World War II. And it's an old model. And so once a company expands across the entire nation and you have someone that owns a franchise in every single city of the US, the only way you could have an opportunity is if someone sells you a franchise. And it's just, but then everybody knows that this era is over because every one of us knows someone, every one of us watches YouTube. Like, let's not even talk about real estate for a second. People in this room probably have hobbies like a sport or, baking, whatever. And so there's an influencer on YouTube, and they have an audience that's worldwide. So that's the era that we live in now. And so I knew I needed to find a different way to grow because I have to keep growing. You're either growing or you're dying. And if you're standing still, that's just a slow death. And so I have to keep growing and in order to continue to be a bigger and bigger blessing. And so I stepped out of real estate team coaching and I started to get into coaching programs that were just for entrepreneurs. And that's when I started to see it. So I wanted to find a way to create a bigger opportunity for those wonderful people that had said yes to the vision. And then also to fulfill my purpose and my destiny, which for me, my infinite goal, I'll go ahead and share it, is I want to give as much money into the spreading of the gospel as I possibly can in my lifetime. And so I can't stop because it's something that will never, I could never outgive the need. And so I had to keep looking. So that's what that season of my life was about.
And did you actually pursue some of these other traditional models? And is that when you were kind of bumping up against
a
wall? And is that really kind of what had you pivot?
Yeah, it was from that expansion office. And I realized like, okay, well, if I had 20 leaders in an office, it would be very difficult for me to replicate that leadership. However, I could create an ecosystem just the same way an influencer does on long form on YouTube, and I could have a voice with a large audience anywhere. So another thing that happened during this time is as the Chad Smith team is reaching this point where we're doing 350 transactions a year. I'm leading through 2 agents, Brooks and Jason, who these guys sell 65 to 85 homes a year each. They're excellent realtors. And they, since 2016, they lead the rest of the agents on the team. So I'm running this $100 million team. I only sell 2 or 3 houses a year. They're leading everyone else. So those 2 agents and then the leader of the ops team are the only people that report to me. And so I'm looking at all this and I'm going, okay, I've got to find a way to create this opportunity for them. Mm-hmm. And we're doing all this through this morning meeting. And I look around and there's like 10 of us in a room, like a builder beige, like early 2000s room with a regular whiteboard. And I'm like, wow, this is changing our lives. And no one on the planet knows what's happening.
Mm-hmm. Now, I want to take a step back for just a second because I think one other thing that's important that I know you shared with me off camera, when you were looking at these other models, one of the things that really stopped you is you felt like, you know what, I'm the only one who's going to end up benefiting if I go down one of these paths. And so I'd love for you to talk about that.
Yeah. If you're running in that model and you have an expansion office, all those agents in that other office, they pay a split to me. Well, there's no opportunity for these wonderful people that help me. And then also what happened is we knew agents from around our market that were in a cloud-based brokerage model. And the team agents that were on those teams were doing better than my guys. And so it's humility. Out of humility, I went to go start looking at these things because I have to fulfill my commitment to them. So I looked at other opportunities for Brooks and Jason. Yeah.
That's awesome. So, that brings me to, you mentioned you were with your other brokerage for a long time, and it was 17 years.
Yeah.
So you were with them for 17 years, and you left to start your coaching community that you still have today, The Real Solution.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I wrote down that I'm super curious to know about is what was so alarming to you? Because that's really the word that came to mind when I was thinking about your story. What was so alarming to you that you did want to go in a different direction, that you did decide to leave your brokerage after 17 years, to hit the pause button again, and then start the Real Solution community?
I think it was the entrepreneurship trainings. And one of the things that the current program I'm in now, it's called Key Person of Influence. By Daniel Priestley. His training program is actually DENT, D-E-N-T. And he talks about how through human history, there's a sector of the economy that demands all wealth creation. So like from the beginning of time all the way up until the Industrial Revolution, it was the age of agriculture. You had to own land or you could not generate wealth. You were either a landowner or you were a peasant or a slave. That's it. And if you were not a landowner, the only way you could ever become wealthy would be by conquering someone else's land. Mm-hmm. Then the Industrial Revolution, it was whoever controlled the manufacturing of machines. So think about Rockefeller and Henry Ford, Carnegie. Well, then after that, you had the age of distribution, which is the franchise, like we talked about a minute ago. But all that was based on permission. See, I had to ask somebody's permission at my previous brokerage to expand. Mm. There's some people in the room I met this morning, and they've lived through that too. And and all that's fine. But then with the internet and then with social media, so around 2007, that age of permission started to die. And so from about '07 until now, we live in the era of collaboration. And so there is no permission needed any longer. Through social media, through the internet, through platforms, if you know how to articulate who you are, your core values, and you put that out there, you can find your people. You can find your people anywhere. And so that's what the real solution is. It's like if you think about if the brokerage is here and your team is inside your brokerage, the real solution exists outside of it. It's just us being us. It's just who we are. And so certain people come to us just because they identify with that.
Right. Well, and take a minute to share with everybody, describe what the real solution is. And really, I want to go back to intention, because when we said intention, that really lays the foundation for everything. So describe what your intention was and still is with the real solution, and then tell everyone what the community is.
Yeah. So it goes back to that the room I was talking about with the whiteboard and regular office tables and no cameras, and like, man, this is great, but no one has a clue. When we did 100 million in a year, the first time we did it, I had 2 friends on Facebook. And so it was the 2 loan officers that became my first 2 friends because they started my business page. So I literally, I was nowhere to be found. And so the real solution was this idea that we'll turn this morning meeting that we've run 3,000 times, that's changed our life, we'll turn it into a broadcast. Because everybody's out there selling a product, and the product may or may not work, but quite often you never hear from them again. It's just like a black hole. Well, I'm going to show up every single day of my career and bring my best, and the ones who are like mine can come join and be a part of it. So that was the idea. But let me say this too. The reason it's called The Real Solution, it goes back to the Men of Destiny CD. So in 2010, Tony Salinas, who has been on the show before, he comes up to me, and he was a rookie agent, really hungry, came off the oil fields, amazing story. And he comes up to me and he goes, I want to know how you're doing. I'm going to take you to lunch. I said, all right, let's go. So we go across the street. We sit down for lunch. He's real direct, and he goes, how did you do it? And I said, well, do you want the brokerage answer, or do you want the real solution? He was like, oh man, give me everything. And so I told him, I said, the real solution is you put God first, and then your wife, and then your children, and then you pursue excellence in business so that you serve everyone that you have an opportunity to serve. And then we finished lunch, we went to the car, I showed him the same CD, invited him to church, and that's why we named it The Real Solution. So all the Real Solution is, it's just a group of business people that say, I identify with that. I identify with putting God first, honoring your spouse if you have one, training up and pouring into your children so that they do more than you ever have accomplished, and they're set up right, and then pursuing excellence in business. That's all it is.
Well, and what comes to mind for me is that it's a community with no boundaries. And you personally are showing up, I think, pretty much every single morning. If you can't for some reason, then of course Brooks or Jason are filling in. But I would love for everyone to know, I mean, you are showing up every morning and you are coaching your heart out.
I don't feel like I'm working. It's just I love it, right? So, I mean, I'm going to be there. I'm going to work every day. I mean, you go to 2020, we went to work every day, every single day. And so that's just what we do. I'm supposed to work. And so we just turn the camera on now. And so, we're just equipping. We're cycling in and out of. Oh, and the other thing is I want to stay valid. So another observation I've had is that you go through this journey and then you reach a certain point. Let's say you become the top producer, and then you have leverage, and then you go into whatever the next season of your life is. Well, every year that passes that you're just not in the day-to-day of real estate, you become a little bit less able to help agents. And so I'm just gonna stay there and just keep pouring into the people that are there with me every single day. And, it's 45 minutes. It takes, I've turned into the type of person, one of the number one questions I get asked is, how do you know what to say every day? Well, everything that I read, everything I watch, everything I consume, everything I listen to, I convert it into how I'm going to share that. How does that relate into helping an agent that I'm talking to or a business person I'm talking to grow and get a little bit better every single day? And so I just filter everything into that 45 minutes each day.
Right. And like I shared at the top of the show, your community produced about 400 million just last year alone.
Yeah.
So I would love to know, what do you see as the biggest challenges that agents are facing today in their business? Because you're obviously working with a lot of them.
Yeah. Well, okay, so we know the stat, 2024, 71% of all agents did not sell 0 or 1 home last year. So that means 7 out of 10 didn't sell a home. So if we're talking about all of them, I think it's only a handful of things. Every single real estate brokerage in the nation has training. They all have training. They've always all had training. So one, it's the same thing for me. My first 4 years of real estate, they had training every day. And lots of agents went to the training. I went to the training, but nobody broke through. Then there was a season at that brokerage where we all went to training, and a lot of us broke through. And then there was a third season at that office over 17 years, and everybody went to training, and almost nobody broke through. So what was the difference? The difference is who's teaching the training. Okay, so the first thing I would say for agents that want to break through is get into proximity with a winner. Like, it sounds different when you're learning from somebody who's actually done it, and not like 20 years ago, like now.
Like now, yes.
Okay, and then the second thing is it's gonna be on the agent. The reason agents don't succeed is because they don't talk to anybody. I bet that agents average like 1 to 2 contacts per day. They show up to the office, they're like, I don't know what to do. They scroll for a while. There's like a training, they go hide in the training. There's like a broker open with like a free lunch. That's the key to a realtor's heart. They go to the broker open and they tour that, they come back, they talk a little while, and then they go home. And like there's this thing inside of them, they feel guilty when they go home. So they don't know what to do, and they let that be the excuse, and they don't make enough contact. So it's just massive action. Like it takes way more than what you think, and you have to be willing to do it for way longer than you thought you were going to. And so it's get into proximity with someone that really knows what they're doing, copy everything they're doing, and then take action, way more action than you've been taking for way longer than you think. Like, if in your mind you have a thought, like, I'm going to do this for X number of days or this many times, and then if it doesn't work, I'm going to give up and have a pity party and whatever, it will never happen. You'll never break through. But if the mentality is, I'm going to do exactly what they say, and I don't even care if it takes 1,000 days, I will not quit until I win, you will be the one that breaks through.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm so glad you said that, because what I really want to highlight and just summarize what I heard you say is, number one, get with the right person.
Yep.
And number two, take massive action.
Yep.
And it really wasn't until, and certainly, tell me if I'm off on this, but it sounds like it wasn't until you met that very first mentor in real estate who had already done everything that you wanted to do. He helped. I always say, we don't know what we don't know.
Yeah.
And he helped you really paint a vision for your life, a vision for your real estate career. So it's important to get with somebody, like you said, who's already been there, done that, exceeded your wildest expectations. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. So I think I learned the concept from my pastor, right? He still says, like, if you needed a surgery, you would not go to the surgeon that killed the most people last year, right? You would go to, I need the best surgeon, right? If you wanted to learn golf, you don't go from you don't go learn from the worst golf player. So who you learn from matters. Oftentimes we don't run that filter, like who's teaching the class. I don't judge anybody, but I filter it. Do I want what they've got, right? Do I want to sound like that listing agent? Do I want the business of that person? Eddie's in the room. Whenever I met Eddie, I thought, look at what he's done.
Mm-hmm.
That's another who. I can learn from him.
Yes.
So I'm still learning from my pastor because I want what he's got.
Yes. I like how you said, I don't judge, I filter. I love that. I think we all should.
Have to be a fruit inspector. I mean, you can't, you don't learn I call it it's the story model, right? Your mind is going to find the evidence to support the story that you tell yourself. So if you hang out with the wrong people in your office, they're all going to tell you that rates are too high and this is too hard. You're done, right? But almost every day I run our morning meeting, I say, I don't care what happens in the market. There are always houses selling. There are always buyers buying. And someone in this country is having the best month or the best day or the best year they've ever had in real estate. I just had my best day so far in my career as a realtor with my realtor hat on about 2 weeks ago. $5 million property in one day.
I love it. I love it. I know. And you always say, what's the market got
to do with me?
With me.
Right.
Absolutely. So.
Right. But if you're not hearing that every day,
yes.
Then, there was a big broker in our market in DFW, and I saw one of his sales meetings on social media. I only watched a couple minutes, but he was sitting there telling his folks, like, just hang in there a little bit longer. Rates are going to drop at some point, and then it'll all come back and we'll all be okay. No. I'm surrounded by people who are doubling their business this year, and then it doubled last year. I've got agents that focus on their sphere of influence, and they doubled this year. You are in control of what happens in your business. There are thousands of transactions happening in your market. If you're in a small market, hundreds. I don't care. There's more than enough opportunity out there. People need help. Buyers either buying for like opportunistic reasons or just because they're expanding. Sellers sell because of bad reasons. It's better if they're selling for good reasons, but some have to sell. And so you can help them preserve that equity. There's opportunity everywhere. It's just up to you to win the mindset game and take action.
Mm-hmm. But I love what you said a minute ago, that you've got to be in the room with people who are filling your mind with that.
You will become like who you surround yourself with.
Yes.
Yeah.
So something you shared with me off camera that I thought was so fantastic. Growth is not accidental. It's architect. I mean, that's just so good. I have to say it again. Growth is not accidental. It is architect. So you've experienced what I would say 3 seasons in your career.
Yeah.
As an agent, a team leader, and a mentor.
Mm-hmm.
All of this led to you creating what you now call the infinite agent model.
Yeah.
So I'd really like for you to explain to everybody who's watching and listening today, what is the infinite agent model?
Okay, so it does go back to that first thing my mentor drew, like become a top agent, and then the opportunity comes from there. So I've just observed a lot of things where I don't ever want to be the person selling a shiny object on social media, because I've spent plenty of money trying all those things. And I also don't want to become someone who is trying to stay relevant when I'm not relevant, okay? And so I'm leading through these wonderful people in the organization. So don't let your past clients go. Learn how to build that leverage and keep your core business intact, your local business intact. So your core business stays here, it's local, but then use all these modern models. And so the idea for infinite agent is that the income from all the other businesses reaches a threshold where it covers all the expenses on this core business and your personal expenses. And therefore your gross, your GCI is actually your net income or beyond. And so I see it as you got to have 3 things in order to become an infinite agent. 1, you have to have an infinite goal or else you'll quit. We've already talked about that. Something that's so compelling that great people would come with you. 2, you have to build it on an infinite platform. If you're still stuck in a local, like a local small brokerage or even a franchise type thing, you cannot do what I'm talking about. And then 3 is you build out modern lead generation for your real estate business. So you have lead generation happening with outbound prospecting, inbound marketing, social media, and then like world-class systems to all your past clients. And you're pouring into those key relationships. So all that's built, and then you're attracting opportunity through all these other things. So if you have rev share through a cloud-based brokerage, if you have coaching income, monthly MRR, monthly recurring revenue through your coaching streams, property management, rental properties, flips, wholesales, title, mortgage, you name it, you could run that business to where it has a zero cost base. Like you're running it with no expenses. Mm-hmm. And I think the industry needs a new model codified, and that's what I'm doing.
Yes. So, I mean, for the agents who are willing to wrap their mind around this and follow the infinite agent model, what do you think is going to end up being different about their business? What's going to shift from maybe where they are now to where they could go?
Well, this is the time to shift. You know, the market has been stuck in this spot for a while. And so I think agents are looking for answers. And so I think it's just, we kind of hit it a couple minutes ago, like get in proximity with someone who understands this. If they're just clinging on to the old models, they need help too. Like, okay, we haven't said this. Even the best offices in the nation, of every brand, when the lockdowns happened, almost every one of them, they got shut down, and then almost none of them ever came back to what they were beforehand. Mm-hmm. And so it's like Humpty Dumpty got broken and it never got put back together again. Mm-hmm. But agents crave community. Human beings crave community. So communities have been rebuilt in a completely different way. So it's like, if you're serious about your business, go find your tribe. That's what I would say. Mm-hmm. Go find people that you can do real estate with on a daily basis. Not once a quarter, but every day. These things happen. These things are happening in every industry all around the world. When I'm in my entrepreneurship coaching, they're based in Australia and London. So I've been on Zoom calls I got up at 2:30 in the morning, and then there's like people in the daytime in New Zealand or in Australia, and I'm out there in the dark on the back porch. Like, communities happen, and you can build real community through a 1x1 square on a screen. Mm-hmm. I would rather be on a digital, like Zoom or Google Meets meeting with world-class people that I'm in alignment with on belief systems than in a stale, broken lunch and learn with free subs with somebody who sold 6 homes last year.
Right. We don't want to be in that room. So what type of mindset would you say could hold an agent back from pursuing the infinite agent model?
There's a quote from the founder of my first brokerage, and he says, if you want to argue for your own limitations, then you get to keep them. So that would be the mindset that holds you back. Like, so good. What did I have to do in order to honor my word to my team? I had to humble myself and at least explore options. I'm learning every day. I learn from agents that are I'm learning from 20-somethings about social media. You know, I learned from my wife, I learned from my kids, I learned from my pastor, I learned from my team. I learned from what I consume online. We haven't talked about this. I'll just say, like, I break my day into 3 days within a day. So the first day within the day, I'm working on me. Like this morning, you know, I'm here in Houston. I got up at 4-something and I worked out today. I read through all my prayers and all my affirmations. I listened to the Bible on my church's app. And I've studied. I prepared for today. So, but I've been doing that for 20 years. And so, like I said earlier, you choose the program, or they're going to program you. And the way it is now,
So good.
they're going to program you to hate somebody, or to be confused, or to be distraught. Everybody knows the book Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, right? Everybody's heads nodding their heads. He wrote that in 1937. Well, he wrote another book in 1938 that he never published. It's called Outwitting the Devil. And he was afraid to publish it. And somehow it leaked over the last 10, 15 years. And the basis of the book is he sits down to interview the devil. And he says, how is it that you defeated 98% of all mankind? And he goes, oh, that's easy. I just caused them to drift. If all I have to do is just get them drifting in between two thoughts. And everything online is to get you drifting. Going back to that lie of fame. If they can get you focused on stuff you can't control, or all wrapped up in sports, which will never help you pay your bills, unless you represent all the athletes. That'd be different. Right? But if you're distracted, if you're not building yourself, if you're not learning how to grow yourself, that's how you get stuck in that 71% that didn't sell a house. So it's working on yourself first, and then working in your business. Like, do the things that create the future for your business every single day. And if you're really great at that, you can do whatever you want on day 3. Like, if you're in a season of your life where you just want to crush it, and you're young, or whatever that is, maybe you go back to work. I mean, there were seasons of that for me, and I just went back. I've been in one of those recently where I had to finish things, and so I go back up there and I just keep working. But also, if you need to counterbalance, and you woke up, you grew yourself, and then you did the things that create the future for the business, then you've earned the right. You earned the freedom. Like, I never wanted to be the dad that's at every game, but he didn't get his job done at work. But then he's at every game, but the family's suffering. I'm out. I have no interest in that whatsoever. I want to create so much that there's so much velocity, so much momentum, that I can be a massive blessing to not just my family, but everyone else.
Right. So what would you say to the agents who are watching and listening, those who really want to go on this journey? They want to go on the journey of becoming an infinite agent. What would you say is the first thing that they can do to a step towards that?
I would go to Dr. Benjamin Hardy's book, or Dan Sullivan. It's Who, Not How.
Who, not how.
So you have to find a who. I found my who's, right? I'm always looking for a who. Like, it's too hard to figure out this whole business if you're an island all alone. Lone wolves starve, right? Find a who, right? I have my who. I have my mentor for life on how to operate as a man of honor, as a husband, as a father, Dr. Gene Lingerfeld. I have my who. I've had my real estate mentors that show me the way. I have my who that I'm aligned with my real estate brokerage. So I would find the who. Find someone that has their best year of their career every single year, and then go get close to them. And then do everything they say. Humble yourself and be coachable. Don't argue for your own limitations. Be the best student they've ever had. See, I want to be the best. I believe that I've made some progress in leadership because I choose to become a great follower of great leaders. Right? I still want to be a blessing to when my pastor sees me, I want him to look at me and go, that guy's a blessing. Right? When Mark and Eddie see me, I want them to think, that guy's a blessing. Right? Don't be, how could someone ever join your team and stay with you all the way if every place you've ever gone, you got what you needed and then you bailed? Right? I want to go all the way with the ones who show me the way. And because I continue to do that, I can expect great people to go all the way with me.
100%. So as we're wrapping up today, and I feel like you just said so much, what would be the one message that you really want to leave with all the agents who are watching and listening, not just today, but in the future, because this is going to be replayed a whole bunch of times.
Sure.
So what is the one message that you want to leave with everybody?
You know, let me say it this way. When I was back there and I was living my own dream, right? There's a quote from C.S. Lewis from Mere Christianity. And he said, "If I find in myself a desire which nothing in this world can satisfy, it must mean that I was made for a different world." And so for me, I found the real solution, which was I put God first, and then honor my spouse, and then train up my children, and then pursue excellence. And so for me, it's I would say that. I would say if you're interested in pursuing the real solution, and then finding out what His plan is for your life instead of trying to do it all in your own strength, then reach out to me and we'll do it together.
Beautiful. All right. Well, tell everybody where they can find you.
Sure. Yeah, we have on Instagram, it's at Chad Smith Real Solution. And we also have therealsolution.com, so you can find me there as well.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for sharing your journey and your story with us today. I've absolutely loved our conversation. And this really is a significant moment for us because we started our show almost a year ago, and you were our very first guest. And so it was only appropriate that you be our very first guest, really on our very first roadshow. So thank you so much for doing this with us again.
If I can share one last thing, thank you all, everyone that attended today. Thank you. I know how much you put into this, so I appreciate you. Mark, thank you. Eddie, thank you for the vision for America's Real Estate Show. And the final thing I'll leave with for all the Realty of America agents, we've been working, me, the tech team, the marketing team, we've been working relentlessly to create an end-to-end, like from the beginning of your real estate career all the way up to wealth building and those infinite agent ancillary businesses to build training to help you, to equip you with everything that you would ever need. So coming up here really quickly, we're going to introduce the Success Vault. And so I'm looking forward to sharing that with all of you.
I know. Can you give them a little sneak peek? I mean,
yeah. Well, we want it to be the first thing that really the industry's ever had where it's sequential. So you can basically ask yourself, it's going to have questions you can ask yourself, and it will tell you exactly where to go to get the answers that you need. And so if you don't have enough leads, we're going to give you the mindset and the skills that you need to lead generate. If you have leads, but you struggle with conversion, you can go straight into building those skills, scripts, dialogues, behavior, neuro-linguistic programming, assertiveness training, all of nonverbal communication, all those things. If you've got all that going, but your transactions are messy, then you can go in there and tighten up those transactions so that you can have bulletproof transactions and raving fans. If you've got all that going, then we really start getting into building your monthly sphere of influence. So you start to build that repeat and referral business and those strategic partners, and then adding leverage, which the leverage is probably the one that's going to change the most, because in case you haven't figured it out yet, AI is creating leverage at a level that the world can't even fathom. And then finally, the last will be wealth building, where you park your profits in assets and become an infinite agent. So that's what we're working on.
It's all back to the infinite agent. I love it. Well, thank you so much, Chad. Give me just a second to say goodbye to all of our live streamers. Live streamers, thank you so much for tuning in today. Don't forget to post all of your pictures, your videos, tag at America's Real Estate Show. We would absolutely love to flood our Instagram page. And you know that is the best way to find out who our next top producer is to follow us on Instagram at America's Real Estate Show. And of course, our YouTube channel. Hit that little notify bell so you always know when we're about to go live. Thank you again. I'm your host, Ashley Polito, and this is just goodbye for now. All right, Chad, thank you so much. Awesome job.